Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. Have you ever wondered, how much should I be saving? If so, you're not alone. That's a common question people ask themselves. We could start off by looking at what the average American does save. As it currently stands, the typical American is saving about 4.7% of their income. Now that savings rate might seem a little bit low to be a target percentage, and it likely is, as we know the typical American isn't too happy with the current state of their finances. So when we're setting our goals, we probably want to set the goal to be doing better than average. What if we looked at how people saved by income? We see that the top 1% average a savings rate of 38%. The top 10% a savings rate of about 12%, and the remaining 90% have a savings rate of about 4%. Now, just a couple things about this data. First of all, it's kind of dated. It's from 2010, but it was the most recent data I could find on this subject, so it's the one I had to use. Also, I don't really like how it's grouped, showing the top 1%, then 10%, and grouping the remaining 90% together. I think it would have been more beneficial had they separated it out by 10% increments, but again, it's what was available. Just for some perspective, what would it take to be in the top 1% or the top 10% based on income? Well, that top 1% threshold happens with an income of over $400,000. And the top 10%, that happens at about $132,000 a year. It seems easy and common sense to say, the more you make, the easier it should be to save. As your income goes up, so too should that savings percentage. And that's true to an extent, but not always. Remember, no matter what your income, good money habits are key, as it's possible to live paycheck to paycheck regardless of income. With almost 40% of households making over $100,000 a year reporting living paycheck to paycheck. In fact, 1 in 4 households making over $200,000 a year report living paycheck to paycheck. Now, of course, a lot of factors go into this. Family size, where you live, but it does bring to light that it's always possible to increase your spending. And for many, a nicer income comes with a nicer lifestyle, and that comes with a bigger price tag. And while I think a 38% savings rate is admirable, I don't think that we can recommend that everyone aim for that savings rate. Honestly, most budgets just don't allow for that. The general guideline you hear is that you should be aiming to save about 20% of your pre-tax income. And keep in mind that this 20% is inclusive of all your savings needs, short-term, mid-term, and long-term. So if you're building up your short-term cash reserves, if you're saving for an upcoming goal like buying a home and saving for retirement, all of these items would be inclusive in that 20% figure. Ideally, if we break this 20% down further, it would look like 15% towards retirement and 5% towards those short and mid-term savings goals. But what if you wanted to be considered a super saver? Well, the global investment management firm Principal defines super savers as those who annually defer 90% or more of the IRS maximum to their retirement accounts or save 15% or more of their salary for retirement. On the one hand, I really like that they give 2 ways to be a super saver. Getting close to maxing out a retirement account, a feat that is not easy to do because the limits are set quite high. Here are those limits for a 401k as of 2023. But then they also say it's someone who's saving at least 15% of their income towards retirement. But what's interesting is that 15% is the amount recommended that everyone be saving towards retirement. So in a way, they're saying that if you just hit the general guideline, you're a super saver. And I get why they would say that because so few people actually hit this benchmark. But I feel like if you're going to use the word super, it would suggest going above and beyond the general guidelines, don't you think? I kind of feel like if we're going to use the term super saver, you gotta hit like 20% going towards investments and retirement. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think it takes to be considered a super saver? Now, obviously, how much you can or even want to save is entirely personal. There's going to be times in life where it's easier to save a larger percentage of your income and other times where your savings rate is going to be smaller. Different phases of life come with different spending and savings rates. Where you're at in your career, do you have kids, what your housing expenses look like? These are going to be some of the biggest things that influence what your spending and your savings habits look like. Expenses in life tend to follow a bit of a bell-shaped curve. You tend to have the highest expenses in your 30s and 40s than at other times in life. So keep that in mind if you're currently at that phase of life and your budget feels like it's constantly running tight. Your spending fluctuates throughout your life. So too will your savings rate. It's completely normal. So now that we have a benchmark percentage to aim for, how do we know if we're on track to eventually hitting financial independence or financial freedom? Well, Fidelity offers these net worth or these net investment amount milestone markers if you're aiming for that traditional retirement. And that is to have 1 times your annual income saved up by the time you're 30, 3 times by the time you're 40, 6 times by the time you're 50, working your way up to 10 times by the time you retire at 67. But if we look at how the typical American actually fares when it comes to their account balances, not including their home, again, we see that most are a long way off from these benchmarks, which brings us back to why we want to be above average savers. Having benchmarks like this is nice in the sense that it gives you a way to measure your progress, and it can help you answer that question that we all tend to have from time to time, which is, how am I doing? But these benchmarks aren't meant to be taken as gospel. Hitting 1x your salary by the age of 30 is no easy feat, especially when many people that age are still dealing with a heavy student loan debt burden, or they spent much of their 20s in lower paying starting positions, or trialing out different careers, trying to figure out which one fit best. These guidelines and rules of thumb often assume that everything in life goes perfectly according to plan. And often that's not what happens. In life, we often have to deal with career breaks and setbacks and hardships. And I don't want you beating yourself up if you don't fit perfectly into these marketing materials. What matters is that you're making progress towards your goals. Saving 15% or so towards retirement is a great goal if you start early, stay consistent, and you're aiming for that traditional retirement age. But what if you want to retire early? Well, you're gonna have to save more. NerdWallet has a pretty cool retirement calculator. You enter your age, income, how much you currently have saved, how much you're actively saving, and it can let you know if you're on track to meet your goal. You can also expand this optional tab, add any other sources of income, expected spending, when you want to retire, and even an expected rate of return. If you're interested in playing with this calculator, I will link it down below. Another one worth considering is this one from Networthify. I've featured it before, but it allows you to play with savings rates and see how many years off your early retirement or traditional retirement would be based on different savings. I will link that one as well because I like that year countdown. But safe to say, the less years you have to retirement, and if you feel like your nest egg is running behind, you're gonna have to up your savings rate. The earlier you start, the smaller the savings rate you can get away with. So we know that good benchmark to aim for is 20% towards investments and saving. And what if you're just starting out on this commitment to savings? It can be pretty daunting to make that leap from saving nothing to saving 20%. And that may not be altogether possible immediately. First things first, create a budget. Actually look at your spending. Figure out where your money is going and figure out some areas where you can cut back. And this is the first step because most people don't actually know what's going on with their money. Understanding what is happening with your money is the first step to taking control of your finances and allows you to redirect some of those dollars towards future goals. Because likely we all have some areas where we have some wasted dollars, and why not take those wasted dollars and put them to work building a brighter future? Start small. Rarely does anyone start off saving 20% right out of the gate. I like to say start when you can with what you can. If you can save $25 a month, great. If you can save 5% of your income, that's fantastic. What's most important is that you start and that you start building that habit. Over time, you can slowly bump up that dollar amount, or you can bump up that percentage. You can work towards a more aggressive savings rate. It doesn't have to be immediate. What's more important is that you get started. Any amount that you start with is a great amount to get started. Importantly, Work on increasing your income. Realistically, there's only so many cuts that we can or really want to make within our budgets. If you cut out every single expense, that's not likely sustainable. A better approach is over time, work on increasing your income. That's more sustainable because then you can have money to enjoy life as well as money to earmark for the future. Before you even get started on your investing journey, there are some important considerations. While I'm a huge advocate for getting invested early and letting compounding interest work in your favor for as long as possible, there are 2 items you want to check off your list before you go all in on investing. Take care of any high interest debt. If you have any high interest consumer debt or credit card debt, say it's sitting at 10% or heck 20%, get that paid off ASAP before you start investing. While it's said that the stock market returns an average of 10%, that 10% isn't guaranteed and it certainly doesn't actually happen every single year. But if you pay off your debt, you save yourself from paying a guaranteed 10 or 20% to lenders. Take the guarantee first, then move on to investing. Don't let compounding work against you. Also, have an emergency fund. Even if it's just a small one, 1 or 2 months, have some easily accessible cash set aside so that if hard times come up, you have something to fall back on. Otherwise, if you just start investing right away, depending on the account type, you could face extra penalties or taxes if you need to access this money early before you're at full retirement age. So it's just something to be considerate of. I always like to say keep some extra cash at the ready just in case. You never know what life throws at you. What is your current savings rate and how is that broken up between short-term and long-term goals? Let me know your thoughts in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know of someone who would get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye.